Oh,
Error. Let me try this again.
we're live.
Are we? Okay. Sorry, it was saying it was an error. All right. Well, we are here today, Small Business Grit. Jennifer and I are talking with Meredith Eaton, the founder of Eaton Press, and she helps business owners take their ideas, thoughts, expertise, and put it into a book that they can then use to grow their business, be more visible, anything like that. And I am doing one this year as well. And so is Jennifer. I guess we're both working with Meredith. So we thought it would be a great idea to bring her on and talk about how a book can really help your business, especially since lots of people are able to publish business books, self-publish them.
That's right. I mean, it's the new business card, is it not?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
So how do you want to give us just a big picture, Meredith, on what are the biggest benefits people get out of their book? Is it Amazon sales? Is it speaking gigs?
So yeah, there are a lot of benefits that you can get from having a book as a small business owner or a service professional. So therapists and mental health providers and stuff who might not consider themselves a small business owner, but they are a service provider and they have a point of view and they have stuff are also really great candidates for writing a book. But so there's a lot of benefits that you can get. Income isn't really directly from the book sales, isn't really one of them. And I always have to make that clear. Most people do not make a ton of money just from selling the books, just from their Amazon sales. Instead, the money comes from getting clients, getting booked for speaking gigs, doing keynote presentations, launching programs. That's a really great use for a book, is to launch, a course or a series of courses or a group program, that kind of thing. And that's where the money comes in, and that's where you recoup what you'll invest in writing the book.
So we both know Corinne Coppola, who I'm saying it right, Coppola, who is a wellness and mindfulness coach. She actually just kind of clarified and defined her own framework, which she calls Conquer. And each of the words stands for a step in her framework. So that would be like a perfect book.
And one thing that I've talked to Meredith about is a lot of us, you think you're starting from scratch with writing this book, but if you start, you've already been writing. Like, it's in your blog posts, it's in your, if you have a podcast, it's on your podcast. It's, even in your social, media posts. I mean, look at the long text that you write along with your Instagram posts. I mean, that could be fodder or part of a chapter. So you most likely have a lot of content already prepared for your book that you can repurpose. So you're not exactly starting from scratch. Am I right, Meredith?
You're 100% right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I tell a lot of people. And I run a challenge in June called BizBoWriMo, Biz Book Writing Month. And I challenge people to write their book in the first draft of their book in those 30 days under the idea that 15,000 words is an average length for a nonfiction business book. Okay. And if you break down, I did this math to figure out sort of the average content heavy social media post and how many words people are putting in, like those long posts, like you said, the long LinkedIn or in a lot of Facebook groups, people put those like super long posts. And it's got so much information and so much content. So I went through and I pulled dozens and dozens of those and put them in a thing, calculated the words. So using that as your basis, those kind of long ones, if you do one of those a month for 2 years, which most people are far enough in their business, you've basically written half your book.
Get out.
No, just pull those posts down. You're halfway there.
Well, I'd say I'm 80% done with my rough fit, which is pulling in the content, and I'm at like 12,000 words. And I have like 6, and I haven't done any kind of editing where it really flows nice or that my main theme is going throughout the book at all. Mm-hmm. But I have like 6 smaller topics that I need to now write.
So
So
yeah,
I thought that was pretty impressive.
that's amazing. You're a poster child for this process because that's exactly it, right? And you've only been working with me for a couple of weeks. Like by most standards, we've barely gotten started, and you already have
12,000 words.
12,000 words.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm
That's
sure a lot of it's going to be cut though.
Well, you're going to add in a lot more, but that's the thing. It's not that intimidating. That's where most people get really, really caught up is, yeah, I mean, I know all this stuff and I am an expert in this field, but like, oh my gosh, like sitting down with a Word document or a Google Doc and like getting it all out of my head on the page, it just feels very overwhelming. It feels very big and scary. And that's why I always start with what have you already done? What, even Facebook posts, even, LinkedIn posts, where have you, and if you've done more of that, if you've been a speaker, if you've done workshops, if you've run any kind of group program, if you have the kind of business where you do sort of the same routine with clients over and over and over, you've got so much stuff and it might need to be reshaped and it'll need to be edited, but you're not starting from blank. You're not starting from a blank page. And that's the biggest hurdle to overcome.
And there are people to do that for you, right? So like you slap your 12,000, 15,000 words on a page, like, really ugly. And then there are people that can come in and like make it look really good and make you sound really smart.
That is true. And that's one of the things, particularly nonfiction books. There are so many different service providers and so many different ways that you can bring in the support. And it has to do with how much you want to invest in the book. So I offer a variety of programs where there's from tons of hand-holding to just a little bit of hand-holding, depending on what you want. And for different people, it makes different sense. So I have another client where she's willing to invest because she can take 2 clients. She gets 2 contracts from people who have read her book. It pays for her entire investment, and that's a really low bar. So she wants it done fast and she wants it done good. So she's going to throw all the money at it and get it done fast and good. And she knows she'll make that back, within no time.
I love that ROI assessment because I think we all think if we publish a book that we need to be a New York top seller list selling 100,000 books. And really, that's not how we're going to be using it as micro businesses.
Well, Mary Sue, think about it. Like, so we run the Small Business Grit virtual experience events and we book speakers. And so when we're looking at speakers' bios and, what they bring to the table, if we see they've written a book, that expounds on their expertise, one, it's very impressive to us. We're like, oh, they've written a book. It really amps up their credibility to me. Guess what? I never ask them. I never ask them, how many have you sold?
Yeah.
Never. I don't care.
Did we troll their Amazon book page though? I don't even think we did.
I don't even read the first chapter. I'm just like, you wrote this book, you must know something. I bet that is the case for a lot of people that are looking for speakers, that's on your resume. That says something about your credibility and your level of expertise. And that opens a lot of doors. It is your speed pass.
Oh,
Exactly. That's a really
pass.
I know. I love that.
That's what your presentation name has to be. Easy Pass to Speaking Gigs or something.
Oh, that's awesome. It's true. It's so true. And part of it is that just the fact that you show that you can follow through that process. Like we used to say shortly after I got out of college, like obviously, a million years ago, that part of it isn't just what you did in college, but that you went to college. Like that says something, so like we know something about someone, they finished 4 years, whatever it is. And the same thing's with book. We know something about you because you finished the process of writing a book. So that just tells us something about your commitment to your topic, about your interest in the topic, your willingness to put yourself out there, to stand behind your views. And that says a lot. So even if I don't read the book, I already know these things about you and I can make decisions one way or the other based on that information. Then the book itself gives me more information. So most speaking bookers do not read the books. They might glance at the Facebook page or at the Amazon page, maybe not. Some of them do, though. Some of the big conferences, like paid keynotes, they're going to look at your book, but they're not necessarily reading it. They're looking at the cover. Is it professional? Does it look like something they want to promote when they promote you? They're maybe flipping through it, maybe doing Amazon preview. They're saying, does it flow? Does it look nice? Is it professional? Is it edited? Am I seeing any mistakes? Any type of, so that's the second layer to writing a book, is just making sure you're writing a good book and a professional, high quality book.
Well, what are let me reframe this. So because a lot of people are self-publishing books, how can you distinguish yourself from other self-published books? Or it doesn't matter because you're just playing in your own playground anyways?
Yeah, so that's the first thing, is I'm really not I'm an advocate of moving away from this notion of how is it published, because that is not really a mark of legitimacy anymore. What is the mark of legitimacy most often is availability. How easy is it for me to find your book? If you tell me, think about it, we all do this, right? If you hear someone wrote a book, what's the first thing you do? You go to Amazon. If you can't find it on Amazon, you're like, are they real though? Like, is it? I don't know.
I just did this the other day, actually, with this guy who has a book, and I'm like, what did you publish it 20 years ago? I mean,
exactly. Like, so access, availability is the bigger marker these days than who the publisher is. I mean, most people, I bet, like, just go on Amazon. How long will it take you to tell me who published that book? Do you even know where to look right away? Like, yeah, no, most people don't. So who cares? Like, nobody's going there.
And it doesn't matter if you're in the bookstore. That's just vanity, right? That's
yes.
Forget about the bookstore, people. You're not getting in the bookstore. You don't even want to be in the bookstore.
It is such a racket, and it's you. And this is different. This is specifically nonfiction. If we get into fiction, it's a whole other world. It's a whole other ethos. It's an entire other objective, and I don't go there. I stay in nonfiction. Nonfiction is a lot more direct, and we can talk more specifically about ROI and that kind of thing. But that is you. If your purpose of writing this book, which for most nonfiction people, your purpose should be growing your business. You're not growing your business by having your book sitting on a shelf in your little neighborhood bookstore or even in Barnes and Noble. You're just not. Like, maybe someone's going to stumble on it, but it's probably not. And also, like, the amount of effort and time and follow-up and persistence that it will take to get that book to the shelf of any bookstore, whether it's a small one or a big one, unless the owner can just hand it to them and they put it on the shelf, which never happens. You could have gotten 4 clients probably in that time just by handing the book to people.
How do you get clients from a book?
So there's a lot of different ways. So one of the ways is by using the book to leverage yourself into higher profile positions. So getting yourself on podcasts, getting yourself on conferences, speaking at conferences. The other piece is using it to get PR. So a lot of business owners want PR. They want to be interviewed on the news. They want to be on MSNBC, like whatever it is. How do you do that? So a lot of people hire PR consultants, and that's a definite first step. But almost always the PR consultant is like, well, if you had a book, then I would get this done. So, and I run a mastermind with a PR consultant, and that's her whole thing, is just like, get a book and get it done. And so when the book first comes out, you can get a ton of publicity just because the book's coming out, regardless of whatever else is happening. But then even when the book comes out, you get a few months, it can come back up, right? So your book could be 2 years old, but what you wrote about is all of a sudden a topic of discussion for some reason. Then all of a sudden you're back up. People want to talk to you. They want to interview you. You're back on MSNBC. So, which that is, it seems like wild, but it's actually not that far out of reach, depending on the type of book you write, and who your PR people are. But
from Facebook Lives, MSNBC. Meredith, that should be your book.
That should be. I'll write that with PR people. Because the half is the book and the other half is pitching it. But that is and that for the PR people, that always makes their job so much easier if you have a book. For all those things we're just talking about. People are like, oh, you wrote a book. Awesome. Great. It looks good. It sounds good. Everybody is happy.
Is it weird? This is what I'm planning on doing with my book, Mary Sue. Tell me, I'm planning, this is going to be post-pandemic time, right? I'm planning on like riding the metro for like days, reading my own book.
Yes. I love it.
That is a great marketing tactic.
During rush hour. Like, so there's a lot of people. You got to max out the audience.
And then the other piece of it is you accidentally drop copies places with contact information in it.
I actually dropped them in the offices of MSNBC.
Exactly.
I think you should be on Amtrak going to New York and back.
Just constantly.
Yeah.
Like, yes to
Or the
the
shuttle on the airplane, New York to
Oh,
DC.
yeah.
Yes.
Always reading my own book. Just
That is so genius. I don't have
an expression on my face.
Did you? This is an amazing topic.
When would you talk to somebody about chapter 7? Anybody?
Have you read this book? It's brilliant. And they're like, aren't you? Isn't that your picture? Like, I know.
Yeah, well, that is me. Yeah, that is me. I wrote the book I would want to read over and over and over again.
I can recite it to you. I don't have any plans yet that far advanced. I feel really good about just having gone through all the content I've written, and I feel like I have a decent theme going, or it's developing. I wouldn't say it's finalized, but well, Jennifer, how are you planning on using the book to get customers other than meeting them on the metro? Do you plan on giving it as like, this is how you get started with us? Or
Yeah, I see a lot of like handing out this book, as a freebie. I'm looking at it, for ways to get PR and speaking gigs, to open up the conversation about women delegating, women growing their business, being able to scale their business, women in the workforce, all that. So, yeah, I mean, that's how I'm planning on using it. Meredith, I have a question for you. Have you ever done a scratch and sniff nonfiction book?
I have not. What would
I
be?
can't apply it really to my business, but I was thinking, like, if you're a florist or like a floral designer, or you're writing a book about food, like, how cool would it be to have a scratch and sniff?
That would be so cool. That would be really, really cool. It would be expensive to produce, which I always do it at the logistics of it. But it's doable. It's absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think outside the box.
I got in a coloring book from Gresham Harkless. And it was really cool. It was a business related. It was a thank you gift, and I loved it.
Yes, I got that one too. It is a super cool, and I've had it in the back of my mind of this could be a thing also, like to explore that as a
companion. Instead of the PDF download with your book.
I like the idea of the coloring book, something that like an activity of some sort to go with the static content. I really like that idea, whether it's a workbook or a coloring book. I really like that. Can we talk about book titles? Because I feel, and this is just my feeling, it's not based on fact, but I feel that some books get really, really popular, and it's just because they have like the right title at the right time. Like, the content isn't necessarily that groundbreaking, but the title is so like it draws you in. Is that true, or is that fact, or am I feeling?
No, it's true. That's true. I mean, the title is part of marketing, and so is your cover design, and so is your marketing. Is the marketing, right? So there are books that get a ton of attention simply because of who wrote them, or because they have a brilliant PR team who can spin it and who have the contacts, and so the book gets massive amounts of attention, and it sells billions of copies, and the book itself is not anything interesting or groundbreaking or whatever. So that is definitely a thing. But
like Built to Last, his are always the personal MBA.
Yeah.
The hard thing about hard things. I read that.
Yeah. Well, and that is also a thing in nonfiction and business writing, is there's only so many idea. There's only so many business principles, right? There's only so many different ways to talk about forming good habits or scaling your business or what are these other topics that are the most popular. So everyone is trying to find their niche and their corner and get in there. And the ones who do successful are the ones who know, I'm just going to do this corner. I'm going to talk about this one specific aspect of habit forming, and I'm just going to go all in on it.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that usually have longevity. If they don't, they might not explode onto the scene like some of these other books, but they're the ones that stick and they get passed around, and you hear, oh, you should read this, and I read this book and it was so good, and they will have a steady sales and steady return on that book for years.
Yes.
Whereas the other ones, they might explode and be this amazing thing, and you can't open Facebook, you can't turn on TV and not see this author, but that's gone in a couple months, and usually tanks after that, or not tanks, but dips, and then just like coasts along a little bit.
So here's one I read, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Oh,
Yes, that is a great book.
that is a good book.
Or the other one I read was Unfuck Yourself. That was stupid, but it had like interesting title that
Yes.
they talked about a lot at the time.
The subtle art of not giving a fuck is very interesting from a sort of case study point of view, because just the title is really groundbreaking in a sense. Like, you see it and you're like, oh yeah, like immediately you're doing the work of the book, because you're like, yeah, why do I give a fuck? I don't know. Having a book, like I gave the book as a gift to my brother a couple of years ago, and it was just sort of like that moment of like, I'm suggesting that you need to give fewer F's about things. And it was like, oh yeah. So it's a powerful tool. I don't even know if you read the book, but like, it already started the process. And it's, so in that case, like, it's a win. It is a win. The book is meant to achieve an outcome. And the title gets you partway there. Like, that's great.
I'm thinking about like the book, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like that's been out a while. Still shows up on like business book bestseller list. Like, it's going to show up like in the top 3 like rows on Amazon. And the guy's like, he's gotten TV shows and podcasts, and I mean he's made a whole business out of that book, which he probably should have. That's legit. But that's the kind of book I think we all dream of, like that book that has that kind of power and longevity and just hits the market at the right time and has the right message.
Yes. And part of that is marketing. And it's really important to talk about marketing when we talk about our business books, because so many people think you put all the time and effort, you write the book, and then like, okay, that's it, here we go. Come on, people, come to me, come find me. And that's never, ever how it happens. Anybody who has had a splash is either already famous, but even then they have PR teams, communication teams. Or if they're not famous, then they have PR, they have marketing, they have a plan, and they build an audience and they leverage it. And that is so, so, so important. And the two pieces of it really are inextricably intertwined. And we really can't talk like the power of a business book without talking about the marketing of the business book, because no one is going to find the book unless you give it to them, unless you put it in front of them.
Right.
Have you guys have heard of Donald Miller? He's a marketing, right? His story is that he actually wrote 20 years ago, I think it was a Christian-based book. I'm not sure if it's nonfiction or not. And it was wildly popular at that moment. And then he didn't do anything from a marketing perspective with that popularity, and lost all of that momentum that he had gained from the book. Mm-hmm. And so that's partially why he started his story brand business, because if he had done the marketing, his life would be very different than what it became. So I thought that was really interesting to just understand the failure of what he had done and how he's turned it around, obviously, with his new books.
Yeah, it is interesting, because he actually got lucky. Like, he had that, like, for whatever reason, his book became very popular, maybe without that marketing engine. And then he just, that's That's crazy. But what you're saying, Meredith, is the chance of that happening is so slim, right? Like
it is.
flash in the pan is not most likely not going to happen for us.
Exactly. You need to assume it's not going to, and then if it does happen, you're amazing. You're so well positioned and everything is fantastic. But we need to assume most writers, fiction and nonfiction, tend to assume the opposite. They tend to assume that lightning is going to strike, that because they put the work in, because they tried really hard, because they want it really bad, that's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works. Not how it's interesting, because no one really thinks that about their business. No one really thinks that about their life. No one really expects, but somehow everyone expects it with their books.
Yeah, that is weird.
I don't know what that's about, other than this. I think it's a little bit this sort of over romanticized notion that our whole society has about writers and about books. And it's all this like just discovering undiscovered talent.
Yeah, we're all Jack Kerouac.
Exactly.
I blame Harry Potter.
Yeah, we're all just toiling away, and we're like, boom, it's all going to happen. And which is another thing for business books, for the kind of books we're talking about. You don't have to be a writer. You absolutely do not. Yeah. So you can learn, you can hire help, you can hire a consultant. One of the things I do is I help with the writing process.
Yeah.
You can hire a ghostwriter, you can hire a copy editor, you can have all this kind of stuff. You do not need to, and also it doesn't need to be your life's work either. That's the other thing.
I love that message. Yeah.
Oh, but something's going to change between the time I write the book and it comes out, and but I might evolve, or this might evolve, and it's just like then you write another book. This is not your life's work. This is a snapshot in time, and that's why it's important to get it done as fast as possible, get it out, leverage it, and then write another book if you need to.
I really like that message. I think that's really important. Mary Sue, you said something that stuck with me on one of your Facebook Lives, the Facebook Live where you were announcing that you were writing a book for 2021. And it was something that I wanted to talk about because it wasn't something I'd heard before. And it was surrounding your reason for writing the book. So Mary Sue talked about how one of the reasons she was writing the book is because writing really helps her solidify her messaging and her point of view, and the thoughts around the impact of her business on other people. And I thought that is really true. I mean, I've experienced that when I write blogs or even social media posts, but I'd never really thought, oh, like that's a really good reason to write in a longer format. It actually can help your business internally in that way.
Well, I have found that with my blog posts, and a friend has told me, why don't you just do your Facebook Lives, speak your blog, then what is it? That's not translating. Transcribe it, and create the blog from that. Well, I think in my Facebook Lives, for the most part, I'm all over the place if I haven't sat down and thought through my topics and how they string together.
Yeah.
When I've written about it, my points and my stories and everything, I think are better connected. And then when I was laying out the outline, I was like, oh my gosh, I have a ton of content like right here. And then really nothing else around.
That's funny, but you're right. I'm the same way, Mary Sue. I feel like I express my points much better when I can think them through and write them, but not so good on the fly, speaking about them. And there's some people that's flipped for, right? They're much better orators and not so great writers.
Yeah. Well, and also I think the way I'm thinking about my book is that I'm going to have some where it's setting the stage, getting them thinking about how they can really use digital tools in their business. And then how do they do it? Like each chapter or each section will be able to be a little playbook for going and taking action on that. And part of it is I haven't really, and then the final part is like, okay, well then how do you go do it? So I have done all of those pieces, but I have a hard time really expressing that even to new clients. So it is forcing me to think through, well, what is the project plan for when you're moving from one tool to another tool? What should you really do first and why? I am enjoying the reasoning behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I could totally see that. And then Meredith, you've talked to me about this before. The book itself gives you so much content that can be repurposed in so many ways. So even as you're writing it, you finish chapter 5. Well, chapter 5 can be your whole theme of content for the month on social media and can be multiple blog posts. So I feel like you get so much mileage out of this book writing process that might not be obvious, like all these benefits that we're talking about. Like we think about, lead generation, that's the sexiest of them all.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's all these other added benefits that aren't talked about as much, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the arguments when people say, oh, I don't have time to write the book. I don't know how to make time. It's like, well, how much time are you spending creating marketing content? Well, why don't we just do 2 things at once? And we're going to take previous marketing content, use it as the base of your book, and then we're going to take the new content for your book, and that becomes marketing content going forward.
Genius.
We come up with a free download. You're writing and you get an idea of like, oh, this would be a great free download. I'm going to do it right now. Start getting, lead generating, and then later you can switch it, and now it's a lead gen for the book itself, all that kind of stuff. And it's just a matter of mindset and shifting things around and understanding that it's not this magic thing that has to happen in a vacuum by itself and has to take up all your time, which again goes back to, I think we have a lot of people have these very romanticized notions of what writing is and what writing a book is like. And it's, I have to have all these hours and be locked away and seaside window.
Yeah, I think of, have you watched that movie Love Actually? It's something I love to watch once a year, but the guy, Colin, totally blanked Firth. Yeah, his character, on an old typewriter has a housekeeper making sure that he eats and stays clean.
Exactly. And that's, and that's fiction, and that is still sort of the world of fiction writers to some extent, but that's, again, we're nonfiction writers. And one of the things I really have to do a lot of work around is breaking out nonfiction writers from all of these notions that are really for fiction writers and novels and that kind of thing. And it's a whole different animal, like on every level. The only difference, the only thing that really is the same is that the end result, you have a book, but that's really where it ends because the covers are different, the size is different, everything is different.
What are the most popular colors of the book?
Ooh,
because when I'm looking at like business books, red.
Yeah.
Red, a lot of red.
Yep, red is a big one. Blue is very common, very popular. I mean, if you can see on my bookshelf,
Oh yeah,
those are some of the books that we've published. So I'm just by looking at that, I'm seeing a lot of blue, and even that one up there, that's a lot of orange. I can't.
Yeah.
So, but it also has to do a lot of times with the colors of like your brand colors, your the emotion you want to evoke. Because so for your title and your book cover, there's a couple things. You want to make sure that you're drawing people's attention. So eye-catching stands out. Also that it stands out in thumbnail, which a lot of people still try to come up with overly complicated book covers because you're thinking of it sitting on your desk, sitting on a bookshelf, and we're looking at it on Amazon and most of the time on our phone. So you have
good point.
That works small. So you don't have to be able to read the subtitle, but you want to be able to read the main title, and you want to know what is on the cover. You don't want to be like, what is that blobby thing? Like, why is there all these colors? I don't understand. So that, but then, so you want to catch the attention. You want to immediately, the viewer wants to be able to understand it, but then also you want it to speak to the person you want to read the book. Because what we don't want is someone who is not our target reader to read the book.
Right.
That's going to go terribly wrong for everybody. You're going to get
So if I'm writing a book that I want to, where I want to attract women entrepreneurs, I might not want to use like red, because I feel like red is a very like masculine.
It's aggressive.
Yeah, very aggressive color. So I'm going to think about, twice about using that color. That's really interesting. So important. It's such a important decision.
It is. And, I'm a huge fan of Canva, and I say everyone should have Canva and use Canva for everything except book covers, because you can absolutely create a book cover. They have a lot of really great templates, but we're business owners, unless we're graphic designers, we don't really know what it takes to make the right kind of book cover. And even I do not do the covers. I have someone that I work with, and he is a brilliant graphic designer, and he just does book covers. And so he takes the content that he takes all the ideas and all the input from the writer and from me when they're my clients, and he comes up with these covers. And the things he comes up with are, because he knows these rules about book covers. And he comes up with these things that even the client is like, I didn't know that that's what I had to have. And it's just that it does everything I needed to do. But if you're by yourself on Canva, you're not going to know what you don't know, and you're not going to know how to do it. So that's the only time I say don't go to Canva, because you really just need that expert eye, because it's so important. It is so, so important that your cover is right.
Yeah. Because people do judge your book by the cover. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's true. Maybe we shouldn't, but we do.
Yeah, we should, because what else are we going to do? How else are we going to
do? No other thing, yeah.
So books a day that are published, like you have to stand out somehow.
There's a lot of competition out there. So I'm thinking, okay, so I'm a business owner. You've convinced me I need this nonfiction book. And I know this is a hard question to answer, but just ballpark it. Like, what can a business owner expect to spend, all in to get this out to market? Assuming they're going to need help, they're going to need editing, they're going to need a graphic designer, they're going to need someone like you to help pull it all together. What's the range you're thinking?
It does vary, but I would say if you want the full range of all the support, it's starting around $6,000 and going up from there, probably. Yeah. So, and it depends, a lot of it depends on how fast you can write the book, if you need multiple rounds of editing, that kind of thing. But that's a good starting point. And I think for most people who are writing a book for their business, one, you break it down of how many clients do you need, or how much do you spend on advertising, and you amortize it out like that. It's actually not that big. It can sound like a shocking number,
right?
Actually. But there are people who spend 10, 15, 20, especially if you add in the marketing. If you add
that was going to be my question. Because I think you're just talking about the publishing part, but the marketing part.
Getting the book into existence.
Yeah.
Up on.
There's the whole PR. If you go PR, you're probably talking like a lot more than that even.
Yeah, you probably are. At that point, you're probably talking upwards of, or up to around $20,000, and then up from there, depending again on longevity. If you just want, marketing, if you invest a lot in marketing around the launch, and then you do the rest yourself, or if you want it for the first 6 months, or all those kinds of things, you can go either way. But that's where, like, one of my clients was like, I can spend $20,000 and I just need 2 clients and I'm done. I've got it back.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you depend on the average value of a client, or the cost of your programs or services, that number doesn't necessarily have to feel very big.
Exactly. And that's what I encourage people to do when they're thinking about it and deciding how much they want to invest. And it has a lot to do with, it's a formula. So how fast do you want the book out? What are your objectives for the book? Do you need it by, you're speaking at this conference and you have to have it, and so we need to have it out in 3 months, or I can spend 6 months, 8 months. But also then what would you have to get out of it? What is your average profit on a client? How many clients, that kind of thing. And break it down. And then sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. And I will tell someone if it doesn't make sense, if they're not positioned correctly to be writing a book, or to be investing this much in writing a book, because there are times it just doesn't make sense. And I have no interest in taking someone's money to have them not succeed. It doesn't help anybody.
Right. Absolutely. Well, this has been so informative.
I know. I love it. I'm excited this year about making mine happen and achieving one of my bucket list items.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I've been wanting you to write a book for, I think,
since we met.
Yeah. I'm so excited.
If you meet Meredith at a networking event, it's like, hi, I'm Meredith. Have you written your book yet?
If you go to my website, it's like, you should write a book. You should write a book. Everybody should write a book.
I don't have a book, loser. I don't have a book.
You know what? I have this memory. My father is a PhD scientist. And I have this memory of him reading a book and realizing that the book was based on his research. So his name was in there. And he didn't know that until he, it was obviously in his field, but he didn't know that until he was reading it. I was like, that's kind of what I do.
That is next level. I'm reading a book. Oh, it's about me.
Crazy.
And like you have to wonder how many other books are about me. There's a whole encyclopedia on me. That's crazy.
That's my new bucket list. To like, I want to stumble upon myself in someone else's book.
Yeah, just stumble upon it.
Now my goal.
Yeah, that is crazy times. I love it. Well, thank you, Meredith, for sharing so generously of your expertise and inspiring other business owners to write their book and to tell them all the benefits. And I love this. This is great. It's a great conversation. Anything else we need to tell people, Mary Sue?
Well, we have Turbo Networking next Tuesday, February 2nd at 5 p.m. This will be our third run through, and we're really thinking about doing this on a different platform outside of Zoom, maybe, but it's fun. Everyone that's come has loved the format, so we'd love for you to join us. And I think that's it.
Yeah, and and don't forget, we've got a big experience coming for you, Sales Circus. If you are a business owner and you are interested in up-leveling your sales, being more comfortable with sales, learning how to increase your lead generation so that you have the best year ever in business, and you also want to meet amazing business owners just like yourself, please join us March 15th to the 19th. It's 100% online, but also 100% interactive, and it's a whole heck of a lot of fun. So, and go to eatonpress.com.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Later.